Hi, Steve. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today? Beautiful. Yeah, me too. I'm so excited to have you on the show for some reasons. All right. Firstly, my insight in seeking knowledge, my belief in seeking knowledge, rather, because I believe in order to get unstuck, one needs the application of knowledge, insight, quality information. And the second reason why I'm excited to have Steve on the show is for the sake of the listeners. I mean, the ones who are going to be listening to our conversation. Because I believe there are some things that Steve knows that some of those folks needs to hear you say this stuff directly. I mean, directly from your mouth in order to experience transformation. Okay. And the third reason why I'm excited to have you on the show is because lately, I've been trying to expand my insight as to understanding Amazon, how the stores work there. So I feel like I am one of those folks who will benefit greatly from our conversation. Okay, Steve, for that reason, I want us to get started with your introduction. You know, how the journey has been so far, the challenges that you faced, and how you overcame them. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Steve, over to you.
Well, thank you. And gosh, so as you mentioned, Amazon is something I've spent some time looking at, researching, writing a book about. Um, and that was a whole journey in terms of getting to the point of actually publishing the book. I never started out with thinking about a book, actually. I was, my career's in the insurance industry, which is a little different. Um, and I started asking the question, is the biggest risk insurance agents face actually not taking enough risk? And that started me on a journey of researching companies that, one, have been successful and are no longer here. So what happened? And two, companies that continue to be successful and why. And that's when I came across Amazon, and we can talk more about that. But in terms of my personal, um, I never intended to start out with a book. It's just the ideas that I came across really, I guess, resonated with me, and I thought would resonate with other business owners. So while I started out thinking about insurance agencies, I believe the principles I came across actually apply to any business out there. And again, for profit and even not for profit. Um, so, kind of being able to write, being able to put those thoughts and ideas down in an organized manner was certainly a uh, task and took probably 18 months. And so, overcoming all kinds of different feelings, I guess I would say, who am I to write a book? Who am I to write a book about Amazon? Um, and overcoming that and just feeling that I might have some insights that could benefit other people.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's a great one. Not allowing that feeling to weigh you down. And you said a very important stuff that you might have an insight that will benefit other people. That's a great one. I love that. Okay, so shall we get started with the questions?
Sure.
Okay. Now, hmm, can you talk to us about some of the Amazon growth principles? The ones that you discovered or that you know. Can you share some of them with us?
I can. I'd be glad to. So there are 14 principles, which is a lot. So we're not going to be able to cover all of them. I group them into 4 cycles, which I believe every business is going through: test, build, accelerate, and scale. And then within each of those cycles are the principles. So I'm going to try and pick a couple that we can talk about. The first in the test cycle is, and probably one of the ones that people don't think much about, but I call it encourage successful failure. So this goes back to that comment I made about risk taking in business. And if you're going to come up with new ideas, what I call inventing, you're going to have to experiment. And if you're going to experiment, you're going to fail. Because if you experiment and you know it's going to work, it's not an experiment. And so for businesses, they come up with ideas. Certainly new startups, right, have an idea that they think is different, will help customers better, whatever it is. They have to experiment with it. One, find out, does it work? Two, does it help customers? Three, is it sustainable? And I'm convinced that employees aren't afraid of failure, but they are afraid of the consequences of failure. Because unfortunately, most companies don't encourage experimentation, therefore don't encourage failure. Now, let me also say, because I feel like I have to say this every time, is that this is not stupid failure. This is not who cares what happens. This is strategic, intentional, and designed to succeed, even though you know you're going to fail. So that's one in the test cycle. The next one in the build cycle. So once we test something and have an idea, we start building on that idea. And the one there that seems to resonate with a lot of people is obsess over customers. And again, these principles I'm coming and getting out of the shareholder letters that Jeff Bezos wrote, starting in 1997, ending in 2020 was the last letter that he wrote as CEO. In that very first 1997 letter, he said, "We will obsess over customers." Now, every business knows they have to take care of customers. They have to have a customer journey. They have to have a customer focus. I was intrigued by the word obsess because that appears to go deeper into doing what's best for the customer as you're trying to decide to grow. So it's just a different level. And frankly, obsess can have a negative connotation also, meaning you're too obsessive over something, right? We might say that to someone. But as a business, can you be too obsessed over your customers? And what Bezos said is, we will obsess over customers so that we can invent on their behalf. And again, I think if you look at Amazon's history, that is one of those threads that goes through the letters and goes through Amazon's history and its growth. And I think a major reason why it has grown to where it is today. All right. Accelerate. And the one there I think that might help businesses the most is what I call generate high velocity decisions. And so Bezos talks a lot about decision making at Amazon and how Amazon does it differently than most companies. You see, as a company grows, they tend to add levels of bureaucracy, right? Because you get more people, you have to have more supervisors, more managers, and an employee that might have an idea to improve something, a product, platform, or service, has to go through multiple layers of approval to actually get permission to do something. Bezos describes decision-making in Amazon using the metaphor of doors, door one, door two. So door one decisions are big, bet the company decisions. And those decisions, he said, should be made slowly, with as much data as you can gather, and at the highest level in the company. He says the problem is, as businesses grow, they tend to make most decisions door one decisions, when in fact, door one decisions are few and far between. On the other side of door two decisions are, you can make them quickly with at most 70% of the information you wish you had, and by a small team of highly skilled people. And the idea here is door one decisions are hard to change. Door two decisions are easy. And he describes it this way. You walk through the door of the decision. You look around and say, this is not what I expected, or I don't think this is going to work. You pivot or literally cancel the decision, walk back and start over, try something new. So that creates high velocity decisions, because when you add layers of bureaucracy, you slow down growth. I'll do the last one, scale. And again, 4 different principles here, but the one I want to talk about is what I call believe it's always day one. So the day one mindset is something that appeared in every single letter that Jeff Bezos wrote. He ended the letter with some version of, it's still day one, it's always day one. In the 97 letter, the original, he said, it's day one for the internet. And remember, 1997, it really was. It's day one for the internet and for Amazon.com if we execute well. So what is day one? It's a mindset that we are a startup no matter how big you get. And that excitement when you go in the morning or you first opened your business, you walk in, it's that excitement of having something that can help customers. So how do you maintain that as you scale? Quick story. Jeff Bezos did all hands meetings, usually quarterly. He was doing one in Seattle, their headquarters, a couple thousand employees going over the state of the company and what was happening. And then he always ended the meetings with a Q&A from employees. So they wrote down questions on cards. And he got the next card. And the question was, Jeff, what does day two look like? Well, there was some laughter in the crowd. And he said, I think I know the answer to this question. Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that's why it's always day one. So this idea of maintaining your agility, your startup mindset is one of the things that keeps Amazon going. And I think the more businesses start incorporating that idea, the more it will help them and their employees have that same mindset. So I'll pause for a minute if there are any questions.
Beautiful. I feel like you're a very good teacher because you explain that stuff very well, easy to understand. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 more to go. Yeah. So, why is the key to innovation experimentation? You mentioned experiment earlier. I want you to talk more on that.
So what Bezos says is you have to experiment in order to invent on behalf of the customer. And then you can innovate. And actually, this is a theme I'm working on right now. There is so much, I would say, in the business press that companies need to innovate. And the problem with that is if you only innovate, you literally become a day two company. Remember I said earlier, I had researched those companies that once were very successful and are no longer here. And it appears to me one of the things that caused them to go out of business was they kept innovating, not inventing. Somebody else invented something different, new within the industry that they're in, and leapfrogged them going forward. Innovation is still important, but if you're not inventing new and inventing on behalf of the customer, then you are starting down that day two slide. And he talked in the 2016 letter about 4 kind of ways to prevent day two. Briefly, I'll describe, and we talked about a couple already. The first is obsess over customers, which we talked about in the build cycle. The second is a skeptical view of proxies. Now, a proxy is a process or procedure that doesn't serve the customer. So it's related to obsessing over customers, but it's getting stale in the company. It's getting those standard operating procedures and not reviewing them often enough to make sure they still work. The third is an eager adoption of external trends. And we see that a lot in the technology arena, certainly, and currently the generative AI stuff, right? Everybody's talking about it. But experimenting, eagerly testing it, adopting it. And then the fourth, I already talked about, is high velocity decision making. So he says those are 4 ways that a company can prevent a day 2 slide and continue to grow and be successful.
Beautiful. I got that. One of the characteristics of smart people is they tend to study the lives of folks who are successful and folks who failed along the way so as to, learn from their mistakes, learn from their decisions and all of that in order to provide solution to the ones who are coming behind. And that's the great thing that Steve did. You just displayed that you're a smart man, and I love that. Now your insight and your knowledge is helping other people make informed decision as to the steps to take and the ones they shouldn't. That's a good one. So in order to bring this to an end, Steve, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, maybe you said something that resonated well with them and they would like to learn more. How can that be possible?
So, first, what I'd like to leave with anybody listening to this is there's so many things that I could say. I think I'm going to go back to believe it's always day one. There's a reason it's the 14th, the last principle, because keeping that going in your business, in your nonprofit, wherever you are, thinking of yourself as a startup, and keeping that excitement, that exploration, that curiosity of what else can we do to help our customers. So I think I would leave that thought with you. So in connecting with me, really 2 primary ways. The first is the website for my book is called thebezosletters.com. And there's some additional information there about the book and how you can get more out of it. I would also say in the book, I was very intentional about at the end of every chapter, I ask some questions. And don't skip over those. If you read the book, don't skip over those because that can help you actually think about it in terms of your own business, not just what Amazon did. The second way to get a hold of me is through LinkedIn. That's my primary social platform, and I have a large presence there. So you can search Steve Anderson Insurance, because I have an insurance position there, or Steve Anderson, Bezos Letters, or Bezos. Both of those, you should be able to find me. Connect with me. Let me know you listen to this podcast, and I'd be happy to connect with you. I do a lot of posts there diving into different aspects of the book and the thoughts that we've just had a little bit of time to talk about today. Oh, one other thing, and you don't know this, but I would like to give your audience a gift. And that is, we'll put a link in the show notes that will allow you to go and download a digital version of my book. And that's my gift to you all, because again, I want you to be able to look at these and see what might make sense for your company to help you grow and take care of your customers.
Beautiful. That's so generous of you, man. Thank you so much. So that's going to be the end of the show, Steve. Thank you for coming and thank you for, sharing this amazing insight with us. I feel like this content is a very important one. So what I'll do is I'll have to listen and listen and listen over and over again because you said some important stuff there. Thank you so very much, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.